episode 7. We have talked into your ears for a little over 6 hours now. That's pretty fantastic, if you ask me. So we're going to get into that seventh hour into your brain, starting with this episode here. And it's actually kind of going to be a fun episode, I hope, because earlier this evening, the former Andrew Luck director of offense at Stanford and offensive coordinator of the Indianapolis Colts, Pep Hamilton, was fired. I don't know. I don't want to say that it was necessarily 100% the right move. It was a good move. I don't think that this is something that anyone should be saying is a bad thing. There was something obviously awry. Andrew Luck has played bad, yes. Other things have happened that have been terrible. So he kind of gets the person. He kind of gets to be. I'm not going to call him the fall guy here, but if someone had to go looking at it from a holistic perspective, it had to have been Pep. This offense, when we started the season, this offense was expected to be number one. People were, breaking records. We're talking 50, 60 touchdowns, stuff like that. Obviously, it's not been that way. So it's just kind of interesting to see, like, now that they're firing him right now, as opposed to earlier in the season or later in the season. It's just an interesting time, but it'll be interesting to see how we go against the Denver defense next week with a offensive coordinator for 5 days. But we can get into that in a little bit. But I know everyone here is probably okay with the move. I definitely am. We needed to change. Something needed to change. Like I said, I don't know if this is the right one, but it's a good change nonetheless. What are you thinking about this, Garrett?
I think it needed to happen, not necessarily just because of the recent performance of this offense, but because Pep was never really a great fit for this team. He came in here hired to do a very specific thing, to implement a very certain kind of offense, similar to what they had done at Stanford. That's why they didn't hire him without considering the fact that he had worked with Andrew Luck for a long time. That was obviously part of it. So they tried to run that offense in 2013, and it wasn't a horrible offense or anything. It was certainly better than what we have right now, but it was fairly conservative in my mind. It wasn't close to as prolific as the 2014 offense was. And I had my, coming into the 2014 season, because I didn't really like the way the offense had looked in 2013, I had my concerns about Pep. I started to think what I think now, which is that he just wasn't a good fit for this team and its personnel and its situation. But then we started to, 2014 happens, Luck threw for nearly 5,000 yards, crazy amount of touchdowns. I thought, okay, I still don't really love the way Pep designs his plays. I don't really like the way he calls his plays. Those are two different things, by the way. But he's not interfering with the success of this team, so it's obviously not a high priority to get him out of this organization right now. But now that but like I said, I also don't think he was the reason for the amazing offensive success that we had in 2014. I think that was due to luck and a few other factors. But so it's not, how do I say this? People will look at that. People look at the fact that he was fired mid-season right after this Panthers game and say, well, they fired him because the recent performance has been so bad. But I feel like they knew they were going to go in this direction, or at least I think they should have gone in this direction a while ago. And so, yeah, I do think it was the right move. I don't think it's going to solve all of the offensive problems that this team has right now, but it was the first step in that direction in turning this offense around. And I don't know exactly what new philosophy they want to embrace, but clearly they are going in a different direction, and that can only be considered a positive.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, just any kind of different change is kind of a positive, and that kind of it's interesting when you talk about philosophy, because I go back and I try to remember what the 2011 and 2012 Panthers and the 2013 Browns offense looked like under Trzynski, and it's really kind of an anomaly because Cam Newton is just a different kind of quarterback. I mean, it's so hard to kind of look at raw numbers and really know the whole story because he's just a different kind of quarterback. It's kind of like Russell Wilson. I mean, he's kind of the same way. A box score doesn't always tell the entire story on how well he played. So I mean, it's interesting to think about Cam Newton when it comes to that. But if I remember right, his offense does involve a lot of kind of deep shots. It's kind of a it's kind of like a it's like an almost of a middle of the road West Coast offense. He does like to do a lot of that quick hit type stuff. If I remember right, I'm sorry if I'm just completely wrong, but I know he's kind of like Arians and likes to do the deep ball as well. But I don't think that his plays are nearly as long developing. They're more he wants to get the balls in the hands of fast guys, because if you remember who those 2011, 2012 wide receivers were in Cleveland, you're looking at guys, or not Cleveland, but Carolina. I think you're looking at guys like Ted Ginn before he came back, and all those different like little fast guys like that, and then in Cleveland the same with Travis Benjamin and Josh Gordon, but that's a different story. Josh Gordon's just fantastic, but a lot of those little fast guys. So I know he likes to try and do a little of the yards after the catch, and always tight ends have always been really really good in his schemes. And Greg Olsen, who's a really good player, I will admittedly he's a really good player, but Greg Olsen just used to eat in that offense, and so did Jordan Cameron in
We
2013.
saw Jordan Cameron really break out. I actually remember 'cause I had him in fantasy that year, and he broke out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he was one of the top tight ends in the league.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so like I think we'll see some more usage of the tight ends, because even with this Stanford offense that Pep used to bring, like this year, I don't remember a whole lot of tight end usage. There was a lot of tight end usage in the Panthers game, but as a season overall, there hasn't been a whole lot of tight end usage.
Not at
And I
all.
think that,
And
go
that's,
ahead.
and that's something that I was really surprised by because, like you said, Pep has a kind of a history of using tight ends. He did that a lot in college with Kobe Fleener and Levine Toilolo and Zach Ertz. They played together. They were a huge part of that offense, and I was expecting that to carry over. I don't think it's entirely been up to Pep whether or not he's been able to use the tight ends, because Fleener and Dwayne haven't really been able to play together for the majority of their career for both of them, because Fleener was hurt for a good part of his rookie season, right?
Yeah,
2012.
yes.
And then Dwayne was hurt for a lot of 2013 and more recently, so they haven't both been on
Yeah,
the field together.
They bounce back and forth with who wants to be injured, who's going to be stepping in.
Yeah, and then this year, I think Pep has been forced to adjust his offense. I think he did try to work in some of the shorter stuff. I don't know why tight ends haven't really been a part of that, but clearly they've been trying to emphasize the wide receiver position, I think, in recent weeks. So I don't think Pep ever was able to use the tight ends the way he really wanted to in this offense, but maybe Chud will try to just force the issue. Maybe that's what needs to happen.
I think it's time for the breakout of Jack Doyle. I think this is the perfect time. The scene is set for a Jack Doyle breakthrough. We're looking at probably for the rest of the season 70 catches for 700 yards and 7 TDs. What do you guys think, Jack Doyle? Yeah,
I hope
yeah.
so.
Well, that'd be the craziest thing. I think all the fantasy guys out there would be blowing their minds out. They'd be like, "Oh my God, where did he come from?" It'd be kind of funny.
All he does is catch touchdowns.
Yeah, all it does is fall forward and catch touchdowns. So Brian, you've kind of weighed in here a little bit, but do you have anything else you want to talk about with Pep Hamilton?
Kind of go along with Garrett last year. Like you said, it was Pep's offense, but was it really Pep's offense? I think it was tough for them to go from Arians downfield attack, and then 2013. All right, let's bring in Trent Richardson. Let's try that out. Well, that doesn't work. All right, well let's kind of mobilize our offense and let's change it a year after that, and then it's not working. So I think Pep tried to mold Andrew Luck to his offense and from college, but the way that Andrew Luck progressed, especially under Bruce Arians, where he figured out that he can throw the deep ball really well, Pep did a little bit of maybe turning the offense around. Andrew Luck, which is an offensive coordinator, is supposed to do. You build your offense around your quarterback, not the other way around. But, I mean, overall, I was excited when he was first hired, but it was just time to go. You want to talk about, like, fits between Gregson and Pagano not fitting. I feel like you can almost put Pep in there and kind of make that a triangle of three heads of the organization, maybe not heads of the organization, but three guys who all have significant impact on this team, who maybe all had a different philosophy on this team, and maybe they're all trying to work their own way in spite of each other. So I think it wasn't a great marriage from the beginning. I think Arians' offense really does have a big part in why Luck maybe doesn't fit what Pep is doing now. I'm excited to see what Jadinsky brings. I don't know what it's going to be, but I don't know. it's crazy just to think that we're right here. I'm surprised it took Pep this long to get fired. I mean, I think we all wanted him. Well, I know I wanted him gone. I know there haven't been a lot of apologists for him. Most people really haven't been happy with what he's done. So, and to be able to take an offense that added Frank Gore, that replaced Reggie Wayne's targets with Andre Johnson, and then replaced Hakeem Nick's targets with Philip Dorsett, if you kind of want to put it like that, and not be able to see any offensive continuing. We can talk about how bad the offensive line is, but is the offensive line really much worse than last year? Like, can we say that definitively?
I don't think it's actually varied very much since 2012. I think.
No.
People are like, oh, it's fallen off. It really hasn't. That's not really a true story. So you can't really say. I can't really think that the offensive line has actually gotten much worse.
It's just been consistently below average.
Which, yes, it is, and there are a lot of offensive lines that are consistently below average.
For sure.
Put on great production. So it's Pep Hamilton's job to do that, but. The thing he was doing, as I mentioned earlier, is he was trying to build everyone around his offensive scheme, which wasn't working with the talent that was there. You want to go to Tennessee when they hired Ray Horton, and they switched to a 3-4, and everyone's out of scheme. And that's why Tennessee sucks right now. It's because everyone's out of scheme. So Pep tried to change his scheme a little bit, but he still kept some of his old things in there. So it's like they were running two different schemes at the same time.
And that was when he was doing that. That was when we started to talk about, well, Pep is learning, he's improving, he's learning to use. He was sort of stepping out of the way, in a sense, of Luck and this offense. That's what happened in 2014. We found that very encouraging. But what he was really doing was moving away from what he had originally planned to do, what they had brought him in to do, what he's done for his entire career, which is that offense that he ran at Stanford. So once that happened, there was little reason really to keep him around, because we were just keeping him here doing something that he was never supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Brian, what you said about the triangle or whatever, I think that Chudzinski's offense fits our personnel a whole lot better. I don't think that he will be trying to do 6-0 line, uneven balance type stuff anymore. And admittedly, Pep hasn't done that in a while, but he has done it. It's enough to be a meme, I guess. But I mean, I think that the Chudzinski offense will fit a little bit better with the personnel that we have. I'm not sure that Chuck Pagano wants to get away from his mantra of the run the ball, but I think that we will run the ball. But I think it would be more on instead of power, it'll be a lot more of zone read type stuff. And honestly, I think that will actually help Frank Gore a little bit. I mean, I know Frank Gore has been traditionally a power back in his career, but he's done a lot better this year in those kind of stretchy zone runs.
The thing I just don't get is like I said, you're replacing Wayne's targets, you're replacing Hakeem Nick's targets, you're improving at running back, offensive line. It's just going to stay the same. I just don't understand how you don't progress.
Well,
I mean, it's tough to progress when you're one of the best they were first in passing, but that falls on the offensive coordinator. You take the teams that you get, and you need to be able to adapt to that. And Pep didn't really show that. He didn't adapt, he changed, but there's a difference between changing your style and adapting to your style. And it's so frustrating to see an offense that we said has the best wide receiver corps. If you go 5-6 guys deep, when we mentioned all the names, we mentioned Andrew Luck coming off a 40-yard touchdown season. When you mentioned the depth that they did have, although it's not as deep, still Frank Gore is a talented running back, bringing back Ahmad Bradshaw. It's just frustrating to see how somehow it gets so much worse that quickly.
Yeah, and I think really the story of this season with Pep has been, I don't think he caused this downfall. I think that the root of that problem was the difference in Luck's play, which maybe stemmed from an injury, and then possibly as he tried to overcome that injury, he started to break down mentally, and now he's just been worse than ever. But really, with Pep, he's failed to, in my mind, issues to Luck's fall off in play, and I don't think there was any way that he would be.
I don't know.
To adjust in the way I would have liked to see him. Even in this game, this last game of his career in Indy, we saw kind of a dichotomy, the lack of an identity in the Pep Hamilton offense. He started out the game, 2 receiver sets, trying to run the ball, and I don't blame him for that necessarily. It was rainy, Luck is bad, and Gore actually had a few nice runs. But then by the end of the game, it was just we were going 3 wide or war, and it was the up-tempo stuff that a lot of us have been calling for him to do since 2013. So, yeah, it's Luck. I mean, Pep isn't the root of the problems this season, but he's been a problem for a long time.
Well, that's another point I want to make, and this kind of ties in with Pagano, is to talk about how bad of a first half team this is. I mean, we can probably say this is probably the worst first half team, and that goes along with coaching. We can put that half on Pagano, half on Pep, if you want to say. Although sometimes it's been the offense, I always feel maybe it's more luck. But the second half, Garrett, you mentioned that up-tempo stuff. But that kind of game, that kind of style is so tough, difficult to run for an entire game, because you can't throw 30 times like you'd be throwing 60 times a game, and that's not efficient. So everyone's like, oh, they're such a great second half team. But that's when you get when the opponent you're playing is playing prevent defense, and you're just running crossing routes, and they're letting you have it. So I think that's another thing, because we want to talk about Pep almost playing 2 styles of offense, but he was almost forced to, and this is kind of where I almost feel bad for him, because in the first half he was trying to do what he wanted to do. It didn't fit, and then in the second half they would just drop back and throw it 30 times, and it kind of worked, but I mean in the situation where they're rushing 4 guys and everyone's playing prevent, you're bound to get yards off that because it doesn't work.
Yeah, and I'm gonna bring in James. James, welcome to the show. How you doing tonight?
Good, guys. Thanks for letting me come on.
Hey, you're actually a contributing member, so you're always welcome. We just kind of been, as you can imagine, just kind of talking about Pep Hamilton and reasons why he had to go and all that. So I just want to give you your chance to kind of weigh in. I know you haven't really heard anything that we've said, but just go ahead and just give us your take on that.
Yeah, man, I couldn't miss the Pep Party 2015. It had to happen. It was going to happen. It's the first step. I mean, whether or not people are upset that he got fired, everybody pretty much agrees that the whole staff has to go and is going to go. So I mean, I don't know why people would be worried about whether Pagano goes first and then Pep goes with him, or whether Pep goes first. I don't know. I was going on a bit of a rant earlier on Twitter about it. I don't see any reason to think that he's been exceptionally good. It was a lot of fun last year, and we all thought that he was really good. But as pointed out, they weren't an efficient offense. They just threw the ball a ton and had a ton of plays and got a ton of scoring out of it. But they ran more plays than, if I recall correctly, any other team in the league. They ran the most plays on offense. So that's, it's just a matter of efficiency, and that was his biggest issue. That and the fact that they started slow every big game. If you think of any big game that you want to go back to, with the exception of basically Denver, the first year that they came in, with the exception of that where they got us that big lead, pretty much every big game they fall behind. Seattle, Kansas City, every New England game, obviously. They fall behind early, and part of that is just that the offense is really bad in the first quarter. Kyle tweeted it out, something like 30th in DVOA last year in the first quarter on offense, and this season they were like 26th overall. That's just not good, and that falls on your offensive coordinator. Whether you want to say that Luck is the problem and he's the only issue, which, I mean, nobody's denying that Luck's been a problem this year, but it's not like when Luck was at his best, this offense was a great offense. So I don't understand what all the people upset all of a sudden were that they love Pep. Maybe it is just a racial thing. I think it is just because he's black and they love Pagano because he's white.
Ooh, hot takes.
Some guy was tweeting that out saying that, they of course they fired Pep because he's the black guy. Fire the black guy. Like, whoa.
Yeah. That's PFT commenter level of take right there. Which, by the way, I'm going to plug him real quick. If you guys haven't listened to his podcast or his show or whatever, go listen to it. It's probably the best 45 minutes of your week after the Draft Indy podcast. But anyways, so I think it's actually I kind of forgot exactly where I was going to go with that. But you mentioned DVOA for our listeners, and I don't know if how many people know DVOA is an efficiency measure. Basically, how efficient is your offense, how it works. In a lowdown, that's it. And he said last year it was 30th, and this year it was 26th or something like that. So it is an issue, and it's just the whole team is just always seems sluggish, but specifically the offense. In the past few years, it's been a specific. The offense takes a while, but sometimes the defense is there. Like in this Panthers game, they got put into in the first two drives, they got put into two bad situations. The one we held them to a field goal, the other, they got the score, but still, if you put your defense in that position 2 times in a row in like 5 minutes, that's, it wasn't the worst. At least it was a field goal and a touchdown, not 2 touchdowns. It's just, everyone really here is just in agreement that it was time. It wasn't, and the writing was on the wall this whole season. It started back in, I don't know, July with, shadow, sources, anonymous sources saying that there's been a rift building, and then it just kind of got louder and louder and louder, and then we were bad, and then it really got loud, and here we are now. So I don't know. Everyone knew that, like I said, everyone kind of knew this was coming. A lot of people thought it was Pagano, but I think that it makes sense I think it makes sense to go with Pep just to see if the offense can get a spark with a new offensive coordinator.
Can we segue into Pagano? Because I feel like it's important to discuss, especially with these next 2 games coming up.
I agree. It'll be interesting to see how things really kind of change, because this is a huge, I know they've been on alert, but this is fire. I don't know whose decision it was to fire him. That's not been revealed yet. But if it comes down from Irsay, it's a huge wake up to everyone else to, hey, you better. Everyone was already kind of coaching for their jobs. Pagano was, but now it's like a hey, here we are. This is it. Type situation. This is the consequence. This is the consequence of poor performance as a coach, and so it'll be interesting to see how he changes, because as I've said on the show before, you've always seen Pagano growing. He hasn't always been the best of coaches, but he has made improvements in his coaching philosophy. So
there's a point I want to make that I was discussing before James came on about Pep. It's when you talk about this team being just being the worst first half team in the league, it's really not close. When they're so bad, you say, okay, well that's failed preparation. You failed to prepare your team. You failed to motivate them. You didn't have the game plan to come out and give your team a fair shot to win. But then when you start the second half and we're down 20 points, and then we score a touchdown in the third quarter, and then a field goal and a touchdown, and then they score one more. It always happens. It's always a 2-possession game with 8 minutes left. We score, we hold them, and then it's our turn. Can we score again? That's why every single one of our losses ends up 27-20, because we always just lose by 1 score because we were down too much too early. So the thing I'm trying to figure out with Pagano is where do we see him? Where do we evaluate him as a coach and strategy and in preparation? Because it's awful in the first half, but we're an amazing second half team. If you want to go back to DVOA, we're probably last in the first half. We're probably first in the second half, because all of a sudden our defense starts playing great in the second half. We actually start our blitzes actually work a little bit. We're making those third down stops. The corners play better. Is it a motivation tactic or is it a strategy and an execution tactic? Because this is unlike things that you see in the NFL where one team, it's so black and white first half to second half. And where do we put that on Pagano? Is it a motivation thing or is it a second half adjustment thing? Because if he can adjust so well in the second half, why can't he prepare that well the week beforehand?
I don't know. I'm gonna shoot it to James because he's making funny faces during that. So
I've been keeping that in for like a year now. I don't get it how you can be so black and white.
I don't know. I think maybe once, it's interesting because I mean when they're on the sidelines they can't maybe get the full holistic when they go inside they've got computers and TVs and stuff like that to like show all sorts of breakdowns, but I don't know how much time there is to view that stuff. I mean, it's
Well, when you're contrasting 6 days to prepare and 20 minutes, and seeing that contrast between, we're gonna give up 20 points and only score 3, and we're gonna flip around, score 17 points and only give up a touchdown or something like that. It's something that I don't think I'll ever understand, and we don't know where it comes from.
I don't know. Garrett? Yeah.
I do think that you can trace back a lot of the comebacks of this team from the last couple of years to the fact that they've been down a couple possessions. Usually what happens is the coverage will ease up a little bit, become maybe less physical, and that allows for some easy throws, usually over the middle on crossers, things like that. I'm not sure that's exactly what happened yesterday. I'm not sure if yesterday's the best example of that. I thought the defense they played was still fairly consistent with what they had done in the first half, although I haven't seen the All-22. I've only rewatched the game once. But, yeah, he's absolutely right. That falls on coaching, and a lot of things fall on coaching that we don't always attribute directly to coaching. I think other examples of that include penalties. We've seen a lot of penalties this year, specifically on the offensive line, and even on wide receivers. I think Andre Johnson has been called for a few false starts this year, which is pretty stupid. And other things like this team still cannot execute screen passes. I really don't understand why. And little things like that just point to this offense being poorly coached overall. And we say that coaching is hard to quantify, but really when you take a holistic approach, when you look at penalties, when you look at execution on certain plays, when you look at the difference in performance between the first half and the second half, it becomes pretty obvious. And we talk about maybe they're not horrible coaches, maybe they're just mediocre. Mediocre is still bad. You got to get rid of mediocre guys. You can't win with mediocre guys.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think, and once again, I think a couple of you said it during your little tirades there, but sorry, Brian. You gotta stay muted. You gotta stay muted. You're echoing on everything, but I just want to say that it's been it's really weird. I mean, you guys are right. I mean, it's a good thing that he's gone, that Pep is gone, but I still think that it's not the end of the changes. I still think that at the end of the year, Pagano's contract isn't renewed, so he's not technically being fired. He's just not being renewed, and I think that's still happening. I don't know what the verdict is on Grigson, but I do know that it's this. Unless for some reason, Chudzinski comes in here and is a unicorn and everything is rainbows and lollipops tomorrow, or next week, or somehow the offense is magically fixed, which it won't be. We might see signs of progression, but we're not going to see the top 10, the top 5 offense, this next upcoming week. But I think it's just the first of many changes to come. So I'm going to unmute Brian because I know he wants to say something.
Oh no, changing my body posture.
Well, okay. So I'm trying to figure out, where we can kind of go on this. We can kind of go and do some of the stuff that I know Garrett's got to go, so we can either go over some of this other stuff, or we can just kind of call it a night. Go ahead,
There's
Brian.
one thing I wanted to say.
I think.
Oh, Garrett, go ahead.
Sorry, yeah, I'm about to go, but I think if you guys should talk about maybe what you expect over the next couple of weeks from Chud, what you expect, maybe what kind of coach you expect them to look for this offseason, etc. So I'll see you guys later.
See you, Garrett. No, I think that's actually a pretty good transaction. I think what we can see from Chud in the next few weeks, realistically, is improved efficiency. I think we're going to see a faster paced offense. I think that we're going to see shorter developing plays in this offense. I don't think that we're going to see as many. I don't even know if we'll see any 7-step drops anymore, but I imagine we'll see a lot more 3-step, 5 steps, getting the ball out of the hands quick. So I mean, but it's just like I said. I haven't really gone back and done a film study on Chudzinski's offense. But like I said, in 2011, 2012, it was with Cam, and with Cam, you're going to make adjustments to your offense that suits his skill set. And in 2013 with the Browns, he had Jason Campbell, Brandon Whedon, and Brian Hoyer. Like those, all three of those guys started. So I mean, it's kind of unfair to evaluate an offense off that too, because those guys are just plain awful. So, I mean, like I said earlier, what I think you can expect to see we're not going to see as much of a West Coast influence in this offense. It's going to be, I think it'll open up a little bit more. It'll be more Arians than it is Pep, which is a good thing for Andrew, because Andrew was very comfortable in the Arians offense. But I think it'll be very interesting to see kind of how things develop, how much of the old playbook that they use going forward. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what kind of expectations we can see, except what we can hope to see is improved efficiency and maybe more accountability on Luck for his bad decisions. Because I mean, I think that's one thing that we haven't really seen is him being, sat down and talked to. It's really, he's kind of been aloof on the sidelines. So I'm not, I'm hoping that we can see some more discipline all around with the offensive line, Luck, everybody, and improved efficiency when it comes to the offense being on the field. James, what do you think? What should we expect to see from Ched in the next few weeks?
Yeah, I don't really know a lot about Chudzinski's offense. I mean, I watched a bunch of Panthers in 2011, Cam's rookie season. It was a lot of fun, but I don't recall anything specific. Don't know, what kind of scheme he runs, even anything like that. I just know just them firing or releasing, or I guess it was terminating Pep Hamilton. That alone is going to be a wake-up call, hopefully, for the offense, and just make people more accountable. It sounds like I don't even know what's going on there. Apparently, Mike Wells reported that Pep had been asked to go more up tempo and had straight up not done it, and nobody really knows why. There's pictures of Luck, especially like yesterday. Pep's trying to talk to him, and he's on the sideline trying to coach him or something, and Luck's looking at the field or something, just not even paying attention. Colin McCullough said something about, he thinks that Pep lost Luck. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know what's going on. But Luck's clearly either he's not getting coaching from Pep or he wasn't listening to Pep. And either way, that's not a good situation. Everything I've heard, it sounds like Ched likes using tight ends, so that'd be good for Kobe and Dwayne Allen. Tea Party Dwayne needs to come back and get in the offense.
RoboCop.
Yeah. That's a big part of the offense. That's a big part of what was good last year. And, I mean, Luck's been missing throws, but they've barely been used this year. And then looking into the future, I don't really know. I think we all just know Harbaugh, that's their dream. Beyond that, I don't really know on offense or even coaching. I don't know. Just somebody that hopefully can help develop a quarterback, because Luck's regressing. That's not good. But, I mean, we've seen how good he can be, so I don't think this is permanent. I'm not writing him off as a top 15 quarterback or something like people talk about.
Okay.
Eli Manning.
Yeah. Brian, when we talked earlier, you didn't really know a whole lot about the Chudzinski offense per se, but I mean, I know, and we've already heard, your poignant conversation on Pep Hamilton. But what do you think? What do you think about for next year? Like, what do you think we go? Where do you think we go? I mean, you don't have to know any names, but what kind of a philosophy with offense do you think would fit? And if you have names, go for it. But I was just kind of checking in with you there.
Well, the thing you have to figure out is that this second half offense that we've been running for 2.5 years, when we're down 2 possessions, is that something that can be stabilized for an entire game. It's easy to run and gun it, make a lot of crazy passes, make a lot of like rash decisions when the game relies on it. But can you stabilize that and make it efficient for all 4 quarters, where you're at the point where it works if against a defensive heavy blitz or a team that maybe is only rushing 3 or 4 a game, dropping 7 or 8? That's the thing, because it's shown second half success. Luck still does throw picks in the second half, but he'll throw picks anywhere. But if we want to go up tempo, can we sustain it for all 4 quarters? I think that's what the most important thing is, because we've shown that we can do it for the second half. But I don't know.
I think that I'm gonna mute you again. But if I'm looking at an offensive standpoint, like, I mean, I hate to say it, I mean, because it makes me sound like a Patriots fan, but that offense that the Patriots run, it works. I mean, that would be such a good offense for Luck to run. Shallow crossers with the occasional play action, pass down the sideline or down the seam to Gronk, with a good running game. I mean, that kind of offense would suit Luck's skill set so well. And I mean, I don't know exactly who that coach is, but I mean, I think that as someone who can, and they play up tempo too. That's the thing. The Patriots do like to play up tempo. So that up tempo, shallow crosser game, just moving the sticks. Like, you don't have to go. I mean, Luck has the ability and shouldn't be taken out of the offense like by any means. But shorter passes, 3-4 yards, 3 to 4 yard, or 4 yards 3 times is a first down. I mean that's just how that works. And I mean, I don't care if it takes you 40 plays to get to the end zone if you're still getting to the end zone, as long as you can move the sticks. And I mean, so this offense that we saw with Pep Hamilton, it just didn't really seem like it moved the sticks, very well at all. And I mean with the play calling and just some of the play designs, it was just a very weird offense to watch sometimes, with the really long developing plays, but with just like a one dump off, like, it's a second and like 15 or something like that, and everyone's deep except one guy who's completely covered, and so there's just nowhere to go. So Luck's taking coverage sacks. So I mean, it's just
I share those same sentiments, because it seems like first and second down were something that it never really. That's not when our offense evolved. It was third down, Luck making these great plays that he had to, because it was third down. It was 3rd and 9, 3rd and 12, where he'd make a great play and find T.Y. over the middle or something like that. But you said moving the sticks. That's not what Pep's offense did, because first and second down, we never really got any momentum going into a 3rd and short or something like that.
Yeah, no, and I agree. So I mean, it'll just be interesting. I just want to see. That's what I want to see from Chud. That's what I want to see, and whoever our next coordinator is, after Chud, after Chuck, like, that's what I want to see. I just want to see an offense that moves the sticks, and Arians' offense moved the sticks really well. Like, Arians' offense wasn't like this power run. You know what I mean? It took its shots deep when they were available. But for the most part, it did a lot of moving the ball shallow. And a lot of Pep's plays just didn't do that. And I mean, it didn't work for offensive line. It didn't work for Luck, obviously. So I mean, it'll be interesting going forward. But names for me, I've got a couple names that I've been keeping track of in my head. Jim Harbaugh obviously would be a very interesting name. I know James is a big fan of that. We'll have to. I mean, I think it would be a good thing. I don't think it would be a bad thing. I don't know if he's my first choice right now. I don't know who my first choice is, but I mean, that's a name that we can be on the lookout for. Jim Harbaugh. Another name to be on the lookout for, Kyle Shanahan. I know I've said that name before. People seem to be receptive. The Shanahan name has just been kind of tainted over the past couple of years with kind of how the whole RG3 thing went down, and the Redskins being a dumpster fire.
Kyle Shanahan is the best offensive coordinator in the NFL. Maybe I know some people that believe that, but what he did to make RG3's rookie year what it was, and he got injured. But that was Kyle Shanahan, and then to fool us in thinking that Brian Hoyer was a good starting quarterback when the Browns were 7-4 without Josh Gordon, to make Brian Hoyer what he was to that point was amazing. And then to see now what he's doing with Matt Ryan. I mean, people on Twitter are saying Matt Ryan, like, he's still not playing that well, but you see Devontae Freeman come out. You've seen Julio Jones now become the best wide receiver in the NFL. Kyle Shanahan, in my opinion, is the best offensive coordinator in the league, and I would make him offensive coordinator day one. I would give the keys of the entire Colts organization to Jim Harbaugh day one and let him run the whole freaking gig. But I don't think those two are going to happen. It just doesn't seem likely.
And I'm gonna meet you again. My dark horse candidate is Hugh Jackson, and I know everyone always is like, oh my God, what are you talking about? Hugh Jackson took a god awful Raiders team as an interim head coach, or maybe he was the full-time head coach. They went 8-8. They're terrible. It was like one of the worst teams I've ever seen. But I mean, his coaching, worst rosters I've ever seen. His coaching got them to 8-8, and I think they went to the playoffs that year. I think they lost, but he got them to the playoffs. And look at Andy Dalton. This is his second year with Hugh, I believe. Second year. Yeah, I think that's right. Andy Dalton is still, the jury's still out on Andy Dalton. You can think whatever you want. He's not a horrible quarterback. He's an average quarterback. But this year he's played like a really good quarterback, and I think a lot of that has to do with Hugh. So I mean, it's just it'd be an interesting name, and it would be one of those names that I'd be very curious to see, because he is a pretty damn good coach, and but I think he'd be my dark horse candidate. But I think with all of the firings with coaches that are happening this year, Hugh, Kyle, Jim, Chip Kelly will probably all be pretty big names out there for head coaching jobs. I don't think Chip makes it either, but we'll see. You know, it's actually set up. The Titans has set it up prime time for Chip Kelly, so we'll have to see if that fun show comes to the AFC South. But you know, it's just an interesting, it's an interesting discussion with head coaches, because you never really know. I mean, I don't know who's up and coming. You know, I don't know the names. I mean, those are three names that I've seen a lot and that I've thought about quite a bit. I mean, but maybe it's time for someone to, I don't know, someone who's never had a shot, or I don't want to hear Nick Saban's name. Please keep that away from me. Keep that away from my team. I don't know who started saying Nick Saban to Indy, but that is a bad thing right there. So. I don't know, but I mean, if we're also on the other side, if you're looking at GM candidates, I'm a big fan of Scott Pioli, and Kansas City fans might agree with me, might not, but I mean, Scott Pioli could never find a quarterback, but the defense that he put together, yeah, that defense was really good. Tamba, Poe, Houston. The other D tackle, Derek Johnson, Eric Berry. Trying to think of anyone else there. I mean, those guys are all great. I mean, that was a really good defense that he put together. He could just never find a quarterback. Luckily for him, well, maybe he's got Andrew Luck. That might be lucky. That might not be lucky. But he's got Andrew Luck there. So he's got a quarterback that's that we know can be very good, but this year he's played pretty poorly. So, I mean, that'll be an interesting name to see going forward for that kind of stuff. But other than that, I don't really know a whole lot of GM candidates. A lot of those people are, director of player personnel for such and such team that you don't ever listen to or pay attention to. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. So, I don't. Either of you guys got anything else you want to chime in on?
GM candidates, I think we should definitely look at Mark Ross, because he's already helped build the team around Eli Manning. So if we've got the next Eli Manning, we should probably build around him.
I'm shaking my head.
Eli Manning.
All right.
Literally said Eli Manning, straight face.
So Luck is Eli Manning?
That's the word on the streets. That's what the word on the street is.
Well, that's a That's two pretty hot takes today.
Yeah.
That's 2 out of
Oh
3, I
man,
guess.
Twitter was on fire tonight. I don't
Oh
know.
man, Twitter Tuesday was in
I'm
full effect.
I'm ready for the purge.
It'll
GM
happen.
candidates though, for real though, I don't know. Nobody knew who John Schneider was. You know, he was player personnel, and so everybody's like, oh, Ron Wolftree. You know, that's got to be good. I have no idea who else is in the Ron Wolftree that you'd be interested in. I know I've watched Undrafted with the New York Giants on NFL Network, and Mark Ross seems like a fun guy. And you know, we just fired a black guy, so that'll get us another one. We gotta make it up to that guy on Twitter.
Gotta
Um,
make it up to the yeah. I get you.
that one random troll on Twitter. Sorry, guy. I don't know GM candidates. I'm fine with them keeping Gergson. I'm tired of defending him though, so if they want to fire him, do it.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I'm there with you. And by defend, we don't mean saying, oh no, he's a
No.
top 10, he's a top 10, he's a top 5 GM. He's not as bad as you say he is
Yeah.
type
He's
thing.
like
And,
he's like
and
15 to 20. I think that's
sure,
fair.
yeah. Yeah, and that's all I want. That's all I want. Like I just want the person to like step back and admit, okay, maybe he could be 15 to 20, but I'm not saying that he's a top 5 GM. So I mean, it's just I'm tired of it. It's a shitty argument all day. And
Yeah.
it happens way too much on Twitter because you get the people who are like, haha, I know the answer, but they don't
Yeah.
actually watch 20 minutes of Colts games. Brian, what about you? You got anything else for this evening? You're muted.
There we go. Yeah. Now that we've seen David Perry, Kendall Langford, Henry Anderson, come on their own, can we talk about how freaking well Jarrell Freeman played yesterday? I could not believe it. Jarrell Freeman was actually shedding blocks, he was getting through lanes, and he was making tackle for losses. And in the rain against a fast offense, you can talk about guys like Cam Newton, Jonathan Stewart, even guys like Mike Tolbert, who he's not fast but tough to bring down. In the open field, DeQuell Jackson was too. I think I've always seemed to be an apologist for our inside linebackers. I never thought they were as bad as they were. I've had to defend myself many times for that because I don't know. There's parts of the games that I liked each, but I think yesterday was the epitome of what we can see from them, both in the open field and through the A gaps or near the sidelines when they have a formidable three-man front to clog up the lanes. Jarrell Freeman played out of his mind yesterday. I didn't see him a lot in coverage, but I mean he was making so many stops. I can remember two exact plays where he made stops on third downs that helped us get back into that game. We saw DeQuell Jackson make that shoestring tackle against Cam when Cam was running away. I mean, Cam's an incredible athlete, and you're running on a field that's soaked. Trying to tackle him, you get him by his shoe. I specifically remember that play. I was happy with how they both played this year, and I'm not ready to sell them out yet as our inside linebackers while we're waiting for Perry and Anderson to improve even more.
And let me mute you again. But yeah, and from what I just looked up real quick, he had 9 tackles and 5 stops yesterday. The PFF grade was a 8.2, which is, again, when we talk about PFF grades, when you think of 8.2, and 8.2 could be someone's season-long grade, a decent player's season-long grade. And he got it in one game, and admittedly, he's had games that have been negative this year, but I mean, you're right, Brian. He played out of his mind yesterday. He was all over the field. He was making big hits. They weren't like, he wasn't just bringing people down, but he was laying the wood, yesterday. He was making some big tackles, and I mean, I'm with you. I think that we need another person as an inside linebacker. I think we need that faster, athletic-y kind of guy to play opposite of Freeman. But I mean, I like Freeman. I think for what you get with Freeman for his price, I think that he's a very valuable player for our team. He knows the defense really well. He's got a lot of heart, I'm sure, being from Canada. We can ask Mike Holtzen kind of about that, but he's got a, it's just he's not as bad as DeQuell, and DeQuell hasn't been as awful as he was last year. So I mean, I agree with you. But I would like to see a better complement to Freeman at some point soon. And maybe I thought Seymour Moore could be that guy. I don't think that he's going to get on the field this year much, unless someone else gets hurt. But it's just
Yeah, well, I mean, Garrett, I don't know. I think Garrett's always been the one that wasn't really fans of them. I mean, we were talking about, I think DeQuell's, I think he's good in the open field. I think the way he takes on blocks. Freeman was the complete opposite way. He would get swallowed up by any block, but, I mean, you'd put him against a tight end and he would blanket him. So, I mean, it was kind of a yin-yang kind of thing with the two of them, and anytime you put one of them on the field, the offense would audible to exploit those weaknesses. So it was tough because they never were well-rounded, but if Jarrell Freeman plays like he did yesterday, I just couldn't believe seeing like what I was seeing with Jarrell Freeman just shedding those blocks, stacking and shedding, getting off blocks, making tackles that were aggressive, and I don't know, some optimism for the middle of that defense.
Yeah. But I think it's been a pretty good night tonight with the draft Indy. We might be back next week. We might not. Here's the deal. I know James is pretty excited. Fallout 4 comes out next Tuesday, and Tuesday's night is usually the nights that we like to do our podcast. So I'm sorry, listener base. It might be a Fallout 4 night next Tuesday, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate. I hope so. Anyways, if not, you're kind of lame.
We will do the podcast if Pagano was fired, though.
Oh,
if Pagano was fired on Monday. Okay.
Yeah. We'll be podcasting like 30 minutes after it happens.
Yeah. So let me ask this to you guys. This maybe can be our final question. Is Pagano gone after the game against the Falcons?
I don't know.
I don't know if he's going to make it there. Next week's the Broncos. Then it's the bye week. Like I think he's gone on the bye week.
Is there a bye week between the Broncos game and the Falcons game?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think he makes it to at latest. I think it's maybe the Falcons game. I really do.
Yeah. Hope he doesn't mind not visiting Atlanta.
Hey, I'll be at that game, so I'm pretty excited about it. That's about an hour away, so
do it.
We're gonna go check that one out, and I think I'm gonna be in Indiana for the Buccaneers game because I've taken calculated risk and I'm gonna invest my money in a game that I think we can win. So it's the Buccaneers game, so I'll be making it up there for that. So I'm pretty excited about that. Even though football is 100% better on TV than it is live, it's always good to be at a live football game.
Sure.
So that's it for us tonight. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Cool. Have a good night.